Well, I wanted the audience, thank you everyone for tuning in. And we have another special guest that we're having join us, an investigative journalist who has been with me before, who he's an American journalist, but he's independent and last time he was in Spain, and then he was in the Donbass region for a day, and he will talk about his experiences of what just happened. So please, everybody, let's welcome Wyatt Reed. Hello, Wyatt.
Hey Tara, thank you so much for having me.
Oh, thank you. I know both you and Vanessa are so busy. So I appreciate both your time to kind of educate the Western audience, because I'd been saying to Vanessa earlier in the show, we are so limited in what we're seeing now, especially with RTs being censored. And in Europe, you can't see the articles at all, but in the US, it's very difficult. And we're just now getting pounded with one narrative. So you had something extraordinary happen to you, and I am so glad you are safe. And I'm going to get emotional because I was so worried about you. But Wyatt, could you describe to me what happened there to our audience? And I'm glad you're safe, and I'm not going to cry. So thank you.
Well, thank you so much for having me on, and that's very, very sweet of you to say. And honestly, I want to preface this by saying what I experienced was just a very, very minor taste of what the people that I have been talking to and interacting with every day have been experiencing for 8 years. But on Saturday night, I arrived here in Donetsk and was here at the Donbass Palace Hotel for less than an hour, and was met with an artillery strike directly on our position. The windows of this hotel were shattered once again. Artillery strike, I believe a 155 millimeter strike from the Kiev regime forces, hit just across the way. And I will actually take the viewers to go have a chance to see exactly the after effects of this attack by the Kiev regime. We have a strike here. You can see the after effects. This window has been shattered. The glass has been taken out. This was the most minor effect of this strike that took place just 30 meters over in this direction. I was outside when it happened. I watched this artillery strike hit our hotel. I was about 100 meters away, so I watched in front of my eyes a massive ball of flames and smoke rose up at least 3 stories high directly in front of me. I was, as I said, about 100 meters away. I was blown away. I was petrified. I was terrified. It was like nothing I've seen or felt in my life. I crouched down in the corner and had shattered glass from the buildings around me that was blown out by the pressure of the attack, rained down all around me. I immediately posted the video. I started recording about 5 seconds after this blast took place, 5 to 10 seconds after it took place. I captured my reaction to this. I captured the smoke and the car alarms going off and the natural consequences of an artillery strike on a civilian area, which is, of course, for the people that have been living here, then that's nothing new. This is what they've been enduring for 8 years. But to me, it was very new. It was an extremely new experience, horrific, breathtaking, something that I really don't wish upon anyone. But this is, again, what has been happening here for 8 years in a civilian area to a hotel that is known to host journalists. This is the 3rd time in 2 months that this same blast has been struck by the Kiev regime. It's a clear attempt to intimidate journalists, to stop people from coming here. And while I don't want to necessarily say that this was an attack on me personally, I do find it bizarre that this strike took place within an hour of my arrival and within an hour of me communicating to somebody, perhaps erroneously, perhaps stupidly, and telling somebody my location on WhatsApp, an application that is controlled by Facebook, a corporation that is totally loyal to the United States government. My location was shelled, and it was horrific. And I am very grateful to be alive. As I noted in a post that went pretty viral on Twitter, it's now gotten about 250,000 views. I noted that if I had come back about 30 seconds earlier, I would have most likely been killed by the Kiev regime. So that was my immediate experience upon coming to Donetsk. And the other journalists, the workers at this hotel, we formed kind of a bond of camaraderie after this, and we kind of all hung out at the hotel lobby. We drank a little bit of whiskey and kind of tried to process this extremely traumatic event. And they told me, welcome to Donetsk. This is your baptism, and you are now kind of a part of this, and you understand what we've all been going through for 8 years.
8 years, yeah. And what you just mentioned too was also you were put on the kill list, the Ukraine military kill list about a week or two ago. So that was recent as well, wasn't it?
Very recent. This kill list, it's maintained by the Ukrainian government. It's created by a number of influential figures within the Ukrainian government, most notably Anton Gerashenko, who's an Interior Ministry advisor for the Kiev regime, a man who presents himself as on the side of truth and justice, a man who tries to portray his opposition as being terrorists, and a man who says that rather than being a kill list, this is an information clearinghouse, a public service that he is performing on behalf of the Ukrainian people. It's nonsense, obviously. It's a kill list. It's used by the Kiev regime to not only by their border guards to check and verify who is and isn't allowed to come into the territory currently controlled by the Kiev regime, but it's also used in court proceedings. There have been hundreds of cases in which people have been convicted based solely on allegations that have been aired on this website. They accused me of legitimizing the occupation of Crimea and of the Donbass region after having come here and spent a few days in this region, for having witnessed firsthand the referendums that took place from September 23rd to 27th. It's a kill list that numerous people have been placed on, numerous Westerners, number of sitting congressmen, I believe, are on it. Roger Waters, the Pink Floyd guitarist and obviously the greatest lyricist of that band by far, have been placed on this list for voicing opposition, or even Oliver Stone for voicing opposition, or even skepticism towards the Kiev regime, towards their end game, or even just things as simple as encouraging them to negotiate peace, which is ostensibly what everyone in the West is supposed to want from this conflict. Right. Things as simple as asking the regime to honor their agreements in Minsk 1, Minsk 2. We can get into this later. These are sufficient to get people on this list. There are hundreds of children on this list. 13-year-old Faina, I'm going to slaughter her last name, Gastanova, 13-year-old child from Lugansk, who was placed on this government-sponsored kill list for the supposed crime of asking the UN to intervene and to put an end to bloodshed that has been going on since 2014. It's a horrifying sight. If viewers want to take a look at it, I don't really recommend it because it's like a shock gore.
Yeah, it's horrible. Yeah.
As soon as you hop on, I'm sorry, my headphones just died. I hope you guys can still hear me.
Yeah, your volume's gone a little down. So if you want to do something to get your microphone up, I can see you fine, but it's just your audio's gone down. But we had been talking to you, Vanessa, about the military kill list while you adjust that, the volume. And she's also on it as well. And the UK government, we were discussing how the UK government has done nothing but, in fact, it seems like they're supporting it. Has the US, anyone from the US government given you any, especially after you almost being killed, any kind of support or anything, security, any kind of recognition or something that your life is in danger while you're trying to do your reporting, or nothing?
No, they have not received any support from the U.S. Embassy, from the State Department. On the contrary, I have read a statement from National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan, who says that anyone who has given support to what they frame as fake referendums in these 4 regions, which recently voted to realign with Russia, will be subject to punishment, will be subjected to whatever. They haven't specified exactly what the penalties will be, but they said any individual, any entity, whether that be individual or state-based, will be subjected to punishment if we have helped support these referendums. It's very vague. It's very intimidating. It's very mafioso.
Let's go back. So referendum is, you're an impartial observer of an election process. So they're proposing to punish, but not saying what the punishment is, and considering it support if you're an impartial observer?
Right. So neither the term support nor the punishment has been defined. It's a very mafioso style threat.
Right.
I don't know exactly what it means, but they are threatening not only myself, but a number of observers from across the world, from, I believe, around 40 countries, over 100 observers, including members of the African National Congress of South Africa, extremely distinguished diplomats have been placed on this list, lawyers, human rights activists. All number of people are apparently now going to be subjected to some as yet undetermined punishment. Mr. Sullivan has yet to explain exactly what that means. But I mean, to me, this is pretty typical of the response that we've received for the crime of journalism, for the crime of coming to this area and actually speaking with the people who, by the way, everyone, and I mean everyone that I spoke to, who said, like, yes, I will give an interview, expressed not just support for this position of, like, let's realign with Russia, as we have been for most of our lives. We were aligned with Russia. We consider ourselves Russian. They expressed some level of, many of them expressed some level of discomfort with how long it had taken to get to this stage. They have been wanting to be a part of Russia for many years. And so I interviewed a number of people. I interviewed a woman and her 81-year-old mother. She said that she had spent 2 weeks trying to track down her mother, and her mother had spent 2 months in a basement in the Donbass. And she said only friends from Moscow helped us, not friends from Kiev.
Right.
I spoke to another elderly man in his 70s who just, and by the way, that interview I just described to you, it only lasted 45 seconds because they both broke down in tears and had to discontinue the interview. And another interview that I had with a 70-year-old man from the Donbass, he told me that his son is currently fighting against the Kiev regime. And he said that I wish that these so-called journalists from the West would have to spend just one day in our shoes, because if they did, they would understand what is happening to us. And I kind of personally feel the same way now, having been subjected personally to an artillery attack by the Kiev regime.
Right.
It's hard for me not to empathize with these people, understanding, having been placed on a government kill list for the crime of journalism. It's hard for me not to empathize more and more with these people. So if the goal is to try to stop us from having sympathy for our fellow human beings who have been subjected to this level of violence for so long, for nearly a decade now, I think it's backfiring. I certainly hope so, because at this point, it's really hard for me not to feel a level of camaraderie and kinship with the people here, having myself been subjected to what they've been going through for so long.
Yeah, absolutely.